1902, and the last run was made in the late summer of 1933. From June of 1901 through March of 1902, the Delaware Electric Street Railway carried over 300,000 revenue passengers. Think about that. For about 9 months, 300,000 revenue-paying passengers in Little Delaware, Ohio, back in the very early 1900s. Delaware, I've got after the program, I've got some things over on the table under some plexiglass sheets, but I've got a route map of the CD&M. I've got a map that shows the line, the Delaware Electric Streetcar line. It ran pretty much all over the city. It ran from Pennsylvania Avenue to Bell Avenue on Sandusky Street. There was a branch that ran out East Winter Street across the Olentangy River and across then the Pennsylvania Railroad, because the Pennsylvania Railroad was still right along the west side of the Olentangy River. Ran out to Lake Street up northeast to Greenwood Lake. Greenwood Lake at that time, which is now a camp for, I believe, the Salvation Army, was then they had an open pavilion, they had dances, they had performances, they had picnic grounds, they had the lake where people could boat. It was a wonderful place to go on a Sunday afternoon or in a summer evening and so forth, to take your date out on they'll ride the Delaware streetcar line out to Greenwood Lake and enjoy some time out there. The line also ran, there was a branch that went off Lincoln Avenue and went west on Lincoln, and that was also used by the CD&M, and the CD&M line went up and paralleled the Hocking Valley north on toward Prospect and on into Marion. But the Delaware streetcar line turned south on Campbell Street. Campbell Street came in on Central, down Elizabeth Street, and reconnected with the line, part of the line that ran west on William Street out to the Hocking Valley Railroad Station. The other branch of the line went off University Avenue, which is now closed by Ohio Wesleyan. It's a pedestrian place, but some of us remember that as University Avenue. Went up from Sandusky Street to University Avenue to Liberty Street south to London Road, and London Road back in to service the Ohio Wesleyan students, to bring them into town. So it was quite an extensive streetcar system that we had. One of my pride and joys, and I was talking with a couple of folks tonight, is I've got a 4-foot section of Delaware streetcar track in my garage. And I'll tell you how that happened. Some of you remember Streetscape that happened downtown Delaware maybe, 10, 12 years ago. They tore up the streets and the sidewalks, etc. We now have nice sidewalks and the brick, but for a time, there was a lot of dust and dirt that flew. Well, I parked my car on East Winter Street, across the street from the Strand in a private lot, and I walked down to my office at the corner of Sandusky and East Winter. But anyway, I was walking down one day, and they were digging up East Winter Street, and I saw this big pile of rail over there. Well, I saw a guy that had a hard hat on, and I went over to him, and I said, "Sir, are you?" And he says, "Yes, I'm the foreman of the project." I said, "Do you have a small section of this streetcar track? Because I would love to have a section of that streetcar track." He said, "Yeah, there's a 4-foot section over there." He said, "But the truck's coming to pick up this rail to take it away in about an hour. If you can come and pick it up in an hour." So I called my son, who was in college at the time. He got my wife's station wagon. He came down, and 2 of us lifted that 4-foot section. And so I got it in my garage. One of these days, I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do with that. But I have a relic of the Delaware streetcar system, which is, it's coated with asphalt. It looks like, it just doesn't look very good, but it's precious to me. So anyway, I'm so glad that I've got that piece. Enough about that.
The Historical Society.
Yeah, the Historical Society. You know, we talk about the CD&M and the Delaware Electric Street Railway, and I'm getting pretty close to wanting to show get to show the pictures here, because have to be out of here by 8 o'clock, a little after. There was a branch called the Pumpkin Line. Anybody heard of the Pumpkin Line? I had a fellow years ago, his name was Paul Davids from the Radnor area. Paul is now gone, but he wrote his reminiscence of the Pumpkin Line. And he used to ride that all the time. There was a line that ran from Delaware over to Magnetic Springs and on the Ridgewood. Across the Souder River on the west side over by Mink Street Road, I believe. You can still see the bridge abutments over the Scioto. Ran across country out there, ran out West Central Avenue from Delaware, and then across out David Road and over that way on to Magnetic Springs. That line only lasted till 1918. But it was known as, and why the Pumpkin Line, I've got to do a little bit more investigation on that. It's not Pumpkin Line, Pumpkin, P-U-N-K-I-N, Pumpkin Line, Pumpkin Line. Back to the CD&M. As you go south on 23, and you go down the dip, and you come up by Flint Road, and Josephinian is on the right. There's a Frisch's restaurant as you start going down. We all know where that is because we traveled that too many times. And but back in the early part of the 20th century, there was a huge wooden trestle. CD&M ran across that trestle. It's known as the Glen Mary Trestle. And at one time, that was one of the largest wooden trestles for a railway in the United States. The trestle was huge. It was almost 1,000 feet long, about 65 foot high. I remember my dad, as a young boy, saying that he used to ride the CD&M, and he used to get so scared because those cars would get out on that trestle and they'd be going this way. He, as a small boy, he'd be looking out the window and thinking he was going down over that trestle. But in those days, Route 23 was just a 2-lane road. It kind of went round, down, around the trestle there. But the trestle went straight over that. So the next time you go down Route 23, trying to get through all that construction project stuff, the mess that's going on now, but think about the Glen Mary trestle that was once there. Okay? Just like at the Salvation Army Greenwood Lake, there were other parks along the CD&M. There was a park at Glen Mary. There was a park at Stratford. There was a park near the Delaware Union County line on the Pumpkin Line as well. These provided recreation for folks back in the early 20th century. As I say, they would have programs on Saturday evening, they would have dances, they would have picnics. It was a place for folks to go and congregate, and they could ride the rails to get there. Pretty cool. Don't you wish we could all do that today? But it's gone. As I mentioned, the CD&M lasted only until 1933. There were two major effects that spelled the demise of the CD&M. What do you think those two things might be? 1933. One is the what? Automobile. The other is the Depression. Those two things coupled to spell the doom of interurbans throughout the state of Ohio. Literally at one time, it would take you a while, but you could get on an interurban in Cincinnati, ride the interurban north to Dayton, Dayton to Springfield, Springfield to Columbus, Columbus to CD&M up to Marion, Marion up to Bucyrus, Bucyrus up to Sandusky, and so forth. You could do that. It might take you a while, but we had a system of rails, didn't we, Peter, throughout the state of Ohio, where you could literally ride the rails from one end of the state to the other. Last-ditch effort to save the CD&M. As I say, it lasted until 1933. In 1926, they bought two new big all-steel parlor cars. All the rest of the cars were wood cars. These were the first all-steel cars that the CD&M owned. The 500 and the 501. They were beautiful cars, painted in crimson, white, and so forth, and they had the seal through the heart of Ohio on the side of it.